Welcome to the Spearo Hangout, where we talk all things spearfishing, freediving and foraging. We're three guys from Devon in the UK who are excited to share some of the learnings from our spearfishing journey with you over the coming episodes. We bring in some special guests along the way to help spread some in-depth Spearo knowledge from some of the most experienced people in the scene.
Hey, lads.
Oh, well, that was a good episode, lads.
We're doing the
Oh, no, that was a
Intro
crack. Oh, no,
first.
sorry, this is the intro. Sorry.
Oh my god. Hey lads, how we doing?
No, mate, how are you?
Oh, I'm
Evening.
good, mate. I'm good. Yeah. How you boys doing, all right?
Good? Yourself?
Yeah, good.
No,
good. Yeah. Tired, just been for a run. And made
Been
it
for
back
a
in time.
run?
Yeah, man, I told you I'm coming for you guys.
Do you know what, mate? I thought you looked really trim the other day. I mean, it sounds like I'm hitting on you, doesn't it? But
Yeah, but I think
Oh,
photo
you've
was
Ben
lost
went
a
to the-
lot of weight.
that photo was taken from a long way away.
No, I was there. Like,
he saw me at the
caught up in person.
AGM.
Ah.
I'm
What did you say you
down
lost, like,
nearly
5?
20 pounds now, mate.
Oh, geez, mate, that's amazing.
I fucking love this. Before the thing, I was telling you that I'm weighing like 18 and a half. So I don't work in pounds or stone. I need kilos. And you're like, I've lost 20 pounds, you fucking knob. Jesus Christ.
I know pounds, not stones. Yeah, no, nearly 20 pounds.
Those pounds is the same thing. Anyway, should we talk about flags? No, I'm joking.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, I'm on it, man. I'm gunning for it this year, dude. I'm in with David Miller as well, so I'm going.
How's the course going
Oh, have you
with?
arranged that then? Sorry, go on.
I'm just going to say, how was the course with
Spear Ready
Spearo?
program?
Yeah,
Yeah, good. 2 weeks left on it, but I'm just going to continue it anyway. But but yeah, no, it's really good. It's working. So yeah, man, just keep smashing it.
nice.
Cool. Fancy going for a swim one evening next week, maybe?
Yeah, let's do it, man. For sure.
Good
Well,
to
actually,
see.
no, next week. Next week I can't. I'm Cyprus next week.
Oh.
So week after. But
I don't
yeah,
think we've done a pod since we've been out. Oh no, we
Yeah, we
have.
did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, because Damon messaged me. Yeah, he messaged me the other day and was like, "You fucking anchor."
I mean, it was a bit mean, and we do need to get him back on it so he can defend himself.
Yeah, I
Defend
did say
himself.
we got to get
He
him on.
needs to get back in the gym and lift a bit more weights, and he'd be fine. Wouldn't he, with the anchor?
He doesn't. He just needs to go out on Ben's boat more because Ben just makes him pull the anchor.
He's,
Of
he's
which,
the anchor bitch.
I might have bought you a present. I might have bought you an anchor.
Oh, mate, you're so
Oh,
sweet.
he felt bad, didn't he?
Yeah. So I bought
Did
you.
you
a-
really feel that bad?
Yes, because you don't fucking shut
I'm
up
only-
about it.
But it's just funny.
So I was talking to Damon when he was messaging me because he was like, "Oh my god," and I was like, "No, honestly, when I bought the anchor, it was 2.5, 5, 7.5, and 10 kilo choices, and
Oh, I bought the
I've
50.
got a 20 kilo dumbbell in my office, and so I went over to it and lifted it up, and half of that. That's quite a lightweight anchor, not also including the fact that
It's
it's
a
going
bag
to
of
have
cement. That's not lightweight.
for you, like a bag of cement. But it was half of that. And I thought, well, as an anchor, that's going to be okay. But I didn't take into account the chain and the rope. So actually, it's probably more like 18
And the physical
kilos.
size of trying to get it into the little hatch at the front.
Yeah, but for a leprechaun, it is quite big. I mean, for me, it's a normal size anchor. But yeah, no, I bought you a 4 kilo. Basically, I bought you a kilo heavier anchor version of Dave O'Callaghan's, which is no, it's
You
not
didn't need to do that, mate. That's
a
very nice of
grapple.
you.
It's they're not a grapple. They're a granpull or something. They're not a grapple because when I Googled it, it was different. But yeah, that's turning up soon.
What he didn't tell you was he still got your card details and he used your card.
Yeah, but that's a given. I'm not paying for his anchor. No, I'm only joking. I have bought him an anchor. I paid for it out of my own real dollar bucks. So
That's-
He's a lovely guy.
it's only, I think it's 37 quid. It's not horrendous, but we'll change it over and let's just make it more easy for you and your guests. I'm pretty sure that it'll be absolutely happy holding your boat. I mean, it's, as I say, it's the same as Davo's and it's a kilo heavier, so it should be able to hold your boat, no problem.
Well, if not, he can swim for it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Get a bit of exercise.
That's it. And the other anchor we can give to the Titanic 2, I think, is around soon.
Give it to David. He can use it to work out. Not David, sorry, Damon.
Yeah. We'll just tie it around his neck. Bless you.
This week we got Steffen from the BSA Dorset Club in.
Yeah, I had a nice conversation with him at the AGM, whenever it was, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
Yeah, really nice, really interesting guy. Bit of an inventor of all sorts of things, including some spearfishing gear, and he's had a really kind of interesting journey through to spearfishing. So yeah, really looking forward to this one.
Get him on.
Should we get more?
Steffen, great to see you and great to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome on, Steffen.
Welcome, Steffen.
So can you kick us off by giving a little introduction to yourself, Steffen?
Well, yes, of course. I grew up in Denmark, and I've traveled a fair bit around the world for work and in general. And I left after finishing my studies in Copenhagen to go off to Indonesia and work for a couple of years. But that's over 20 years ago now. I mean, it's one of those things. So I've probably been diving in some shape or form since I was about 10. And
Wow.
I've always just loved being in the water, under the water, around the water. And so not surprisingly, we ended up living in Dorset, where we can do a lot of that. You're never bored when you live on the Jurassic coast.
Yeah, so true, so true. And I won't ask you how old you are, but it's fair to say you've been diving for quite a few years now. How was the last season for you?
Well, I think you'll agree. Last year was a little bit challenging with the weather and events being cancelled, and it was pretty challenging. But in a lot of ways, it was a good season for me. I mean, I had about 27 days out diving, and I was out diving every month except for November. So
Nice. That's pretty good. I mean, like from our perspective as like fairly new people to the sport, this last year, in particular, the last like 6 to 8 months has just been terrible. How does it compare historically for you?
Well, historically, I've only been spearfishing in Dorset since 2016. So I don't have that long a perspective. I mean, but it was pretty good for the first 3-4 years. So it feels relative to the past year. But,
Well, it hasn't stopped raining so far this year. It seems that the days that it isn't raining and the sun's out, it's blowing 70 knots easterly. And for us, that's just, on this coast, anything with an easterly, it's awful. But
it's pretty tricky. I mean, we have the benefit with the in Dorset with having Portland sticking out from the south coast. And that means you can generally go either side of it depending on winds.
Nice. And up your way, not to plug the BSA, but up your way, you got the Dorset Spearfishing Club, of which you're a member, I believe.
Oh yes, I don't know if I count as a founding member, but I was certainly around when we got started a few years ago, and it's been really good. We've got some cracking spearos and competition level spearfishing folk, and not just that. There's some of the nicest people I know. I mean, it's just a really great bunch to be around.
And then you've got Ben and Rich.
Well, I was going to say the Dorset Club's amazing, man. We've got such a good atmosphere in the Dorset Club, especially when we do eventually have events when the weather allows. It's always such a good atmosphere. Everyone gets on. It's really great. And like, Steffen was saying, we got some of the national champions, and we got complete newbies as well. So yeah, great club.
What national champion names have you got in? Is Kev Daly part of Dorset?
No, he's not. I'm talking about Dave Stevens, actually.
Dave Stevens, the guy that's got the aim hacks. He's got aimbot on his gun. Yeah, cheap. Love you, Dave.
Well, not only that, we've also got Dave's dad, Alan, who is, I'm sure he'll be feeling his ears burning, but I think he's an inspiration. The chap's in his mid-70s.
Yeah.
He'll give every one of us a run for our money, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
He'd give us a
brilliant.
hiding any day of the week.
All right, so moving on then, Stephen. So you've had, I think, as you alluded to there, a really interesting kind of life working and living in lots of different places around the world. I thought we could kind of start there. You're actually working for the RNLI, but perhaps we'll come back to that later. And I think that'd be a really interesting section. How did you come to be where you are now, spearfishing in Dorset?
Yeah, that's the that's the long story, isn't it? But I'm from a fairly international family, and we've always sort of grown up interested in the outside world. And I was able to go to the US when I was, I don't know, 16 years old or so, and go to high school in the US. That was a bit of an experience.
Yeah, wow.
And it was the first time I was away from home for that long, doing a school year in the US and going through that whole sort of cap and gown prom senior experience at high school. And it was a lot like being on TV. You know, the TV series you see about American high schools. It was a bit like that. I enjoyed that in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways, it was quite challenging, I guess. But
and were you diving back then? I think you said about 16 you started diving.
Yeah.
Diving in the US?
I didn't do any diving in the US. We were in Georgia, quite far away from the coast. But I just the year before started a free diving course. It was this brilliant scheme that was cooked up by some sort of state-funded youth club educational scheme for all youngsters in the area. They were offering all sorts of courses, creative, anything under the sun, really. But the local scuba club, the local diving club, were running this free diving course, and a bunch of us signed up and just had the best time. It pretty much just absorbed me and took over my life for many years. It was around that time we were starting to play underwater rugby as well. And I know a lot of people here play underwater hockey, and it's kind of similar, except you play it in a deeper pool. So obviously, if you don't have a lot of deep pools around, then that's not going to be something you do. But it's a really cool sport, and obviously it's really good for your breath hold. You play basically free diving. It's a bit like wrestling and playing basketball underwater. It's absolutely.
I thought
nuts.
Underwater hockey sounded bad, but
yeah, but as I haven't played underwater hockey, but as I understand that, it's kind of two-dimensional in that you have a puck that you move along the bottom, and then you dive up and down to sort of do that. Whereas underwater rugby is three-dimensional. You're playing up and down, sideways, and it's quite a fast game. But it's a lot of fun. And
is that the one with the sort of the rocket shit looking? I don't want to call it a ball, but it looks like a bit of a rocket. It's got fins.
No, that's. I think that I know what you mean. It
looks like a little torpedo.
Yeah, they're called toy-pedos. We've even got one. They're great fun, but no, that's not it. Basically, it looks a bit like one of those kids' footballs, white with those black hexagons on them, and or are they pentagons? I don't know. But it looks a bit like one of those, but it's full of salt water, so it sinks in the water, and you can't throw it very far. You can just kind of push it a bit like a shot putter, and then you can at most pass it 2-3 meters between yourselves. You've got 6 people on either team, and you've got a basket at either end of the pool that you need to get your ball into the other team's basket, and that's kind of it. And it's surprisingly safe for what you're doing. I mean, it's very simple. I mean, if you want to breathe, then you let go of the ball, and then you go up and do that.
So, can you tackle other players, presumably?
Exactly. So if you have the
full
ball,
contact sport.
Yeah, and that's a salient point. So if you've got the ball, you can tackle everybody else. And
so if you've got the ball, or
yes, and vice versa, you can tackle whoever has the ball. But but
otherwise, it's non-contact. Interesting. Yeah.
But because it's underwater, you don't get all those high impact injuries that you see in other contact sports, because you can't really you don't get those sort of forces built up where people are running at each other and bashing into each other. So it's I mean, there's the odd sprained finger, that sort of thing, but on the whole, it's surprisingly, what's it, peaceful. And then you get the odd sort of fracas breaking out on the surface where someone says someone else did something that they didn't like. And all that sort of stuff. But it's been so long since I've played.
I mean, it sounds fun, but I'm not sure I'd want to play. Well, I wouldn't play real rugby these days, but I definitely wouldn't want to play underwater rugby. That just sounds
underwater rugby is a lot better for people, I would say. Now, what I was going to say about underwater rugby is that if you go on YouTube, you can see some videos from the championships, and you get immediately an idea of what that looks like. What's really interesting about it for me was the diversity of it, boys and girls playing together. And one of the first times we played against other teams, we got absolutely wiped out by a team of girls who just wiped the floor with us. They were playing around us. They owned the field, as it were. Took us a good while to figure out how to play properly.
Nice.
Good stuff.
But that's ages ago. So, the underwater rugby and the free diving and so on led on to doing my scuba diving license with the same club later on. And I was just getting into spearfishing in Denmark when I then went abroad to Indonesia. And that was a shame because then a lot of the places I went, well, either you weren't allowed to go spearfishing or I didn't have any equipment for it. So, but I've always loved being out free diving and just the freedom of being able to just take your time. You don't have an awful lot of equipment with you. So there's not that, you don't have the same time limits and constraints that you do when you're scuba diving. Mm-hmm. I would say probably all of my best underwater experiences have been free diving, not scuba diving.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
And you've been to quite a few other places. So you've mentioned Indonesia, you've mentioned USA. I've got a list here which includes Mexico, Germany, Singapore, Scotland.
Is it not easier
Middle
to
East.
Just include the list of places you haven't been?
Well, yeah, right.
That's a shorter list.
No, I don't know about that. But
are there any like interesting, maybe spearfishing related, maybe not, kind of stories from your time in those different places?
Well, I'd say I did have some good scuba diving in Mexico, actually. Mm-hmm. And that was probably where I also had one of the worst experiences I've had diving, which was to do one of my eardrums in. It was, that feeling when you're a little bit congested and then you decide to go diving anyway. Well, that was how I found out the hard way that you don't do that because I was in a lot of pain after those dives.
Yeah.
How did you do it? Was it like a reverse block or was it just
basically
hard? Or?
As I recall it, I had to work really hard to be able to equalize on one of my eardrums, and I think presumably then on the way up, I just couldn't equalize the other way, and something went pop, and it was a couple of months before fine again. No permanent damage, but it's very painful. It's just that reminder: don't go if you're not up to it.
Or don't push yourself.
Well, yeah, and once you feel that it's not working, that's the time to stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing that's always amazed me with the likes of like Emma Farrell and Pavel. So Pavel was one of the instructors that I went out to Tenerife and sort of was taught by, and I was asking him, similar things. When you wake up in the morning and you feel like death, and you feel like your sinuses are blocked, what do you do? And he's like, just go and have a really hot shower, followed by a cold splash on the face, and just like blow as hard as you can and deal with it. It's like, it's my living.
Not blow as hard as you can, because remember a couple of summers ago in Galway,
you did.
My eardrum.
Yeah. No, I think he was meaning more like
as well.
Blow out your sinuses and stuff.
Right.
I've blown my eardrum a couple of times, actually.
Have you?
Yeah, my first time was when I first started diving, and I did it in Vobster.
No way.
Yeah. So I was like just pushing it. I mean, this is my first dive, so I had no idea, and I was pushing it, and burst it down. I think it was like close to 20 meters. It was, And I burst in, literally like everything was just spinning, didn't know which way was up, which way was down,
Oh.
whatever. Obviously fine, got to the top, and yeah, it's painful. So yeah, felt really sick.
What did you do?
after.
Did you just push too hard or something?
Yeah, just pushing depth too hard, didn't know how to equalize properly, all that, jazz. And then yeah, afterwards, like literally felt like I was going to be sick the whole time. Everything was spinning, couldn't drive. It was horrible. It was all right the next day, but yeah, like it's not sore, but it takes a while to recover, doesn't it? And then I blew my nose because I was quite stuffy, and then I blew my nose. I had an ear infection, didn't I? That's right. I had a really bad ear infection, and then I went down the corner. I was going to go diving. I blew my nose really hard, and I burst my eardrum. So yeah, just
I wonder if
things.
some people are like more
But then I've never had any
susceptible
other
to
issues.
it. I was speaking to one of the other veterans at Dorset. I won't say who, but they were saying that they've done it like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
And the doctors every time said, just, you got to stop diving, you got to stop diving. But the trouble is, we can't, can we?
No.
Yeah, I think I've been really fortunate. I learned the hard way once and had a sort of healthy respect since for that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there are a couple of things that you can do with it that help on the margin with like certain over-the-counter medicines and things. But on the whole, I wouldn't recommend anything.
No, and I found that those, you can get like decongestant stuff, can't you?
Yeah.
And I found it just give me a headache and almost like make it more painful diving. Best just to give it a miss, isn't it, for a bit? But it probably works for some people.
Did you ever try that trick about with ibuprofen? I could never say that word. Ibuprofen.
Tried all sorts really, and nothing's really made a difference apart from the neti pot thing where you.
Oh god, it was pretty gross.
I've used
what I
one.
mean? Yeah.
I bought one after you told me about it. I bought one and it was not a pretty sight.
The first time you do it, it's actually really painful because you're just not used to the sensation. But I'll quite happily do it before I do like a big talk at work or something because it makes me sound like less nasal, like less stuffy. I'll do it, the days coming up to a dive because I know that I'm less likely to get one of those like pressure headaches that I seem to suffer from a lot.
Before a blowjob.
Yeah,
clear your sinuses.
Ben just like get a bit addicted to the old neti pot. Every day he's like.
I quite like the sensation.
Yeah, I know you do.
Have you got a personalised one, like with your name on it?
Oh, that's gross, man.
Anyway, enough about me, Steffen.
I like the old school method. Just snort some salt water, good to go.
Thought you were going to say something else.
That can be quite dangerous, can't it? Because you get in your sinuses. You don't want to be having anything other than
salt was really bad.
Like sanitized water. I don't want to write phrases, but you got to boil the water first before you do any of that stuff. You can't just take water out the tap.
I don't know, man. We'll find out
Distilled.
if I need any repair work done in the future, but I just snort the good old salt water and get on with it. I'm not advising anyone to do that.
Please don't do
that. Steffen's hanging his head in shame, like, oh, what am I doing on here?
Anyway, back to spearfishing.
Yeah, maybe.
Tell us, where else, Steffen, have you been spearfishing around the world?
Well, to be honest, I haven't done an awful lot of spearfishing around the world. I spent a couple of 100 days spearfishing in Dorset, and I haven't traveled that far along the south coast either. I basically just go to pretty much the same places that you know and love down here, and it's great. I mean, there's never a dull moment really. I mean, you can have some really quite special experiences, and that they're not necessarily to do with spearfishing as such. It's just that you're out in the sea and you see something that you didn't think was going to happen. So I think probably my most interesting experiences were up in Southeast Asia, just free diving and seeing what people were doing. I remember once seeing some of the local fishermen diving around with just about like a hose in their mouth, and then doing something with a very long net on this reef. And I had a closer look at what they were doing, and as far as I could tell, what they had was like one of those little puffer balls with something in them to stun the fish, and then they basically gathered the fish alive, and then they would go to holding tanks ashore, probably, and go into restaurants and so on. It wasn't great to see. I don't know what they were using, but that was the reality of it. And I saw a lot of reefs that were just smashed to bits from probably dynamite fishing or other destructive practices. It's not great to see, but I think probably one of the things I really enjoyed was just I spent a little while diving around with an octopus, and I was just mesmerized by it. It was a fairly big octopus, and the way that it was. One minute it was sort of walking along the bottom, and then all of a sudden it changes shape into something like a rocket and just swims along with its siphon or whatever it's called. I mean, it's it's the closest I think we get to alien life, just in terms of what we can experience. There's something else.
Would you eat one after that experience, or have you?
I have eaten octopus, and I think I would eat octopus, but I don't know. I've got mixed feelings about it.
Yeah, it does kind of weird people out, doesn't it?
I don't know. I mean, it's once you start to go down that route of what creatures you'll eat and which creatures you won't eat. I mean, it's a slippery slope towards veganism, isn't it, Anthony?
Yeah. I'm getting very close. Very close.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. I have a lot of respect for people who have a principled standpoint. And
absolutely.
No, it's the peer pressure, but not all vegans peer pressure. The same as not all woke people peer pressure. No. They can't all be bad. I just haven't met any nice ones yet.
No, but you know, there's a lot to be said for knowing where your food comes from, and I think the ability to go out and find your food in Mother Nature is really a very powerful thing. I think it speaks to us on a lot of levels. There's something very primal about it. I think it's easy to forget. It's not that many thousands of years ago that we were just hunter-gatherers, and not long before that we were, I don't know, primates scratching a living. And there is still something, I think, deep-rooted in us about being able to go out and come home with dinner.
100%. More worthwhile, and it always tastes better.
Absolutely.
And Ben, would you take another octopus?
Yes, but not such a big one. I think the big ones are just a bit tougher. But I think it's very difficult. I think it's what you're saying, Steffen, to draw the line based on some kind of measure of intelligence or human likeness. I struggle with understanding that. I'm not saying I want to eat a cat. It just doesn't look very tasty, but that's not because it's, something that is, friendly like an octopus or something like that.
I mean,
I'm probably going to get a lot of hatred for this, but see, I wouldn't actually care if people ate dogs and cats as long as they killed them humanely and obviously looked after them properly before they slaughtered them. But obviously, it's just the way that you treat an animal, isn't it? And then the day, what we do is, can't get, well, in my eyes, it's perfect. You can't get any better than that. It's a wild animal. Do you know what I mean? So I don't have any qualms about taking anything out of the sea as long as I'm going to eat it. And that's the way I look at it. But
yeah, and many cultures do eat cats and dogs. I'm not saying that they're always the best cared for, or any of those other kind of issues which I think are important. However, I don't think that as I don't get too political here, but like as Westerners, we have any moral high ground to say you should eat this and shouldn't eat something else. That just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, for sure.
I think there's something to be said for recognizing that, well, we're all animals, and it does end at some point. It's the bit in between that matters. It's the quality of life that matters, and I think that matters in a number of ways. But certainly when it comes to what you eat, I think there's something to be said for if you're going to take an animal out of nature and put it on your plate. I think it's important to respect that and know where it came from and what kind of life it was leading. And that's where a lot of the industrialized food production we have on land is. Well,
yeah, definitely. And having kids has been an interesting thing for me because they don't really know what killing is. They don't know what that means. So when I bring home a dead fish or a dead scallop or a dead whatever, and then, maybe they step on a slug and I'm like, well, you're not going to eat that. So why would you step on that slug or that ant or that whatever? And that's an interesting kind of way of looking at these things. But anyway, we're getting too deep. Let's get back to this bit.
It's getting a little bit philosophical today.
Just as a last bit of on that point, but a little bit of jokiness was actually tonight on the way home. Ben, I was talking to you earlier on about my escapades with the car stuff in work earlier on, but we had the kids in the car on the way to go and pick up some parts, and I was trying to get my son, who's 6, and we've got 2 daughters, 7 and 5. So they're old enough to know all of the animals. And, I think we've given them a pretty good upbringing on, they kind of should know where their food comes from. They know that, burger is cow. But we were in the car and I was saying to Bo, we'd broken down in one of my bloody cars outside Subway. And so because it was just me and Bo, we went into Subway and got him dinner. That's about 6 o'clock. And we weren't going to get home in time before bed for his dinner. So no, he went in Subway, ordered white roll, chicken, cheese. And that's it. He was just like, he just wants chicken, cheese, and ketchup. So that's fine. So I got him that, sat him down, ate it. And then in the car, I was saying to the girls, oh yeah, we got him a Subway. Bo, what was in your Subway? And he went, well, it was cheese and then ketchup and meat. I was like, what do you mean meat? What was the meat? What kind was the meat? And it's like, it was a white one. I'm like, hang on, whoa. You asked for for that meat. What is it? What kind of animal does it come from? Okay, you can't remember what it was, even though it was 5 minutes ago. You 6-year-old, typical. You can't remember what happened. Name the meats. Like, what meats are there? List them and what animals they come from. And he went, oh, don't know. I was like, so where does chicken come from? He went, oh, cows? I was like, fucking Christ. And the conversation went like that. And I was like, okay, so that we'll go and get a lobster, crab, and the animals in front of you, and they've got no problem with killing them. But the chicken that he had in the Subway, he's still in his head, can't tag that to a cluck cluck. It's just...
Maybe you're reading too much into it. My kids are a bit older. I mean, they're 18 and 13 now, and not surprisingly, they're part fish. They're both competition level swimmers, and they're pretty competent free divers as well. And it's just a really nice thing to be able to do, is to go out free diving together down here. It's just brilliant.
Do you go in the sea? Do you gather food together?
Not so much the hunting and foraging with them, but they do like to look at things. And there is a surprising amount of life, even in, let's say, in the relative shallows, is really where it's all going on. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to see.
I think I worry when I say I'm a spearfisher. It makes me sound like I just go around shooting everything you see down there. But actually, the biggest draw of this isn't really the shooting stuff. That's just something you happen to do when you're down there to bring some tea home. It's all about immersing yourself in that environment, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things I really like about what we do as a sport or a lifestyle or whatever you call it is that it naturally just brings you into contact with a lot of disciplines or skill sets that you need and that you can develop. I mean, you build on a foundation of free diving, fine. But then you get into essentially weapons handling. There's a lot to be said for knowing which end is the business end and making sure that it's well away from you and anyone else.
Anthony.
There's
Yeah. Anthony's really bad at that, knowing which way to point the gun.
Well, it's I'm always very understanding. I mean, you can't know what you don't know, and people have different backgrounds, different skill sets. I was fortunate, and I think I'd say fortunate to do my national service in Denmark. So I had 2 years of going to sergeant school and teaching people to shoot and be on the range with lots of people with, let's say, pretty potent weaponry that you definitely don't want to be at the wrong end of. And we had some absolutely shocking near disasters.
Really?
We had a live round go off in a light machine gun lesson inside the sergeant school. Someone decided that, well, after all, they wouldn't point the gun at a person when they pulled the trigger, and it went past that person, through the door, across the hallway, through a window, and embedded itself in the wall of the local hospital. I mean, that was not good. The other one we had was being on a live fire exercise. Looking down the range, we are all about to let loose with rifles, machine guns, you name it, rocket launchers. And out to the right of the exercise, the firing area, we see a bunch of people in the characteristically red tracksuits of the Danish army. And someone had led a group of people on a bit of orienteering and exercise, and they were about to run out into the firing area. Quite how that was possible, we don't really know, but it's fair to say that the sergeant who was leading them got the right bollocking for that.
Yeah.
But that was incredibly dangerous. So we don't have a long range with our spear gun, but there are some pretty serious forces involved.
Definitely.
Not just
aside from the safety side of things, Steffen, do you find that your education with that weaponry has helped, like, your aim, your efficiency with the spear gun?
I think so. I think there's a lot of there are a lot of commonalities in terms of understanding which way the forces go and making sure that you've got some mass behind your spear gun, so it doesn't just kind of go the wrong way. Like, the forces go both ways. When you're shooting a spear that way, then the forces are also directed backwards. So that can throw out your aim if you're not consistent in how you point at things. So there is that. There's also something that's not immediately obvious until it happens to you, which is that your spear gun can just go off, or a band might just snap. These things, they're not meant to happen, but they can happen. If you knock a spear gun, it can just go off. So there's something to be said for only having it loaded when it needs to be loaded. Something to be said, of course, for having a spear tip cover on when you're not needing to be poking at anything. Not just to protect yourself, but everyone around you and your mate's boat. Your mate's float boat or boat float. All these things that you could potentially poke holes into when you don't really want to. And,
while we're on the subject of gear talking, Steffen's nickname is Inspector Gadget. Because I've never seen anyone create so much gadgets for spearfishing as Steffen has. It's incredible.
Yeah. Well,
you're always tinkering, aren't you? Yeah.
It's another thing. One of those things that happen when the weather isn't with us is that you need something to complement what you really want to do. And if the weather's terrible, well, you can go out in the shed and you can do something. So with the last couple of years, I've had a bit of a cottage industry of trying things out. And, I mean, there's a little bit of that. Well, why should I pay £5 for something when I can spend £500 making my own and it'll be nearly as good? You know, there's, but I have had some surprising successes with the DIY. I mean, I really wanted some better lead weights, so I got hold of a lead weight mold and cast my own, and then I think I've made 4 different kinds now, and that's been quite educational as well. mean, once you get into the heavy metal health and safety, you start to realize, okay, this isn't this is no laughing matter, but there's definitely something to be said for making your own kit, and I've certainly enjoyed it. I mean, I've made some drop weights, I've made some of these hydrodynamic weights.
Do you plasticize them?
I don't. I just put basically some bits of rubber inner tube around them that protect them a little bit and make them a little bit less clunky as well. It's fine. I mean, the if money weren't an object, I would buy a certain brand of lead weights that cost about £30 each. 250 pounds later, that'll be enough for me. I mean, I can't spend that money. So I thought I'd make my own. And just happened to have some roofing lead lying about as well. So, kept me busy during the winter. Nice. The other thing I've been experimenting with recently was I know you get this question, what's your favorite bit of kit? I think I'm late to the party on saying that my favorite bit of kit is my Epsilon Patrol boat float. I mean, it is a game changer, but lots of people have those. And I think it was Matt Newman that said that was his one thing on your podcast.
Yeah,
but it's a great platform. And one of the things I played around with it was to put an anchor and a bit of an anchor reel on it, which makes keeping your float in the same place a lot easier. So I made this contraption of a paint roller handle with a drum on it as an anchor reel. That's it was just a prototype that I knocked together. But
I thought it was pretty cool, Stefan. If I ever get a Epsilon Patrol, I don't know if my wife let me at the moment. Then I would like for me to build one for me because they're pretty cool.
Well, the thing is, your boat float is a piece of safety equipment, right? It's not a toy. It's not a piece of sports.
Yeah,
equipment.
I think that's the line that Ant normally experts.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, it is if you're out free diving and spearfishing for hours on end, it's a great energy saver to have that. It's also a great platform for kind of resting up on in between. And if, God forbid, something goes not entirely to plan, then it's a good platform to have a means of calling for help on. You
find, I'm interested, I never really asked you, Rich, but do you find that the Epsilon Patrol, because it is really big, it's basically like a rib.
Yeah.
Can you feel quite a lot of drag as you're trying to get somewhere? So I use is it the Bochat Puma? Like the small one.
Same as me.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it does the job. You can't really sit on it in the same way that you might do a bigger float. But do you find like it's quite a lot of drag to it, slow you down, or?
The front elevates, so obviously it just sits up proudly out of the water a little bit, and it's also got fins at the bottom to help. But it's not too bad. It depends on the day. I find wind is your worst enemy with that.
Yeah.
So
big old sail.
If it's that's it. If it's a windy day, then you're in for a bit of a battle on that one.
Right.
And generally, it's not too bad if you're swimming back because I would just pull myself up onto it and then fin back, as you know. So that doesn't bother me too much. But it's more so if you're trying to. What really wound me up about it was if it was a windy day, and I was in the shallows trying to hunt sort of stealthily, the float was just like going all over the place and it had a mind of its own. And that's almost what like brings back to Stefan's tinkering is that I think it was Stefan that was saying, did you say that you can anchor that troll and then use a smaller float just to go off and mark yourself? That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that would be super helpful for like if you're hunting like gillhead bream or stuff like that, because a big float's just a nightmare.
Yeah. What I've played around with was to I had my first torpedo float, just single skin, really lightweight. And then just that with a bungee line and to my drop weight, just put loosely under my belt, and then I can just have the small float along in the pocket of the big one, and then if I want to anchor my float up and then swim in the vicinity, I feel a lot safer in the sense that I know that people can see where I am, I might be 50 meters, maybe a little more away from my boat float, but because I've got that little float as well, I'm easily visible, and that works surprisingly well. I mean, it's not a couple of 100 grams of weight extra, but it's really not much, and that's been surprisingly good. And it sort of works together with the rest of the diving platform system. So,
Is there anything else that you've built that you still use?
yeah, let's see.
So to give the listeners an idea about how sort of what Steffan's about, we've obviously got Steffan on Zoom on video call, and in Steffan's background there are 75, 152, 3,000 fly fishing rods. It looks like, are they fly fishing rods or are they just normal rods? Super lightweight, and then 8 or so cuttlefish lures,
Squid fishing lures.
Squid fishing, that's the one. Does your partner know about this room, or is this your hideaway?
Yeah, she's well aware. My long-suffering wife of 20 years. This is the room where things go when they don't fit anywhere else. So it can be a bit cramped. But I was getting some feedback on the amount of fishing rods in tubes under the stairs. So I thought, if I could put them on the wall, and then they're out of trouble, and they can sort of remind me of going fishing, which is quite nice. And it is a mix. There's some fly fishing rods, there's some spin fishing rods. There's a pretty niche Swedish one, which from the 1970s or 80s, which is both a fly fishing rod and a spin fishing rod. And then the bottom thing is a little short spear gun that I acquired recently.
Nice.
And it's like somewhat inspiring on a dreary day. At least you can daydream.
Well, it's very sad that to me that actually looks like a bit of a work of art. Like it looks like an art piece on the wall. I'd very much be glad to have that in my house. My other half wouldn't, but.
Well, it's a good way to keep your fishing rods out of trouble and not completely forget that you have them.
Yeah.
I've got one that's a fly fishing rod, which is split cane. So there's a bit of a tableau as well about technological improvement. If you think about how much has happened in, probably 100 years, I guess, from gluing 6 bits of split cane together and varnishing and wrapping string around them and all that, to fiberglass, to then carbon fiber, which is now cheap as chips. I mean, it's really, it's never been better or cheaper to get hold of those sorts of things. And you see the same kind of innovation in the equipment we use. And it's really...
Wait till you get into Gear Taco, Anthony. All your walls in your house are going to be full up.
Oh, honestly, I can't wait.
I'm sure Rachel's going to love it.
It did remind me of something. You're asking, is there anything else I've done? Well, one of the things that I do enjoy is the making of the rubber bands for the spear guns myself. That's quite enjoyable. It's a bit fiddly. It's a bit of an art form, using the right knots and so on. Dango Man did a good video on making bridle inserts. Bits that you put the wishbone string to, and out of stainless split ends and these beads, and I had a lot of fun making those. I also did some of the Euro spear guns with the screw-in bands. Yeah. Well, you can make those yourself, but you either buy one of these adapters which has a screw-in thing, and then you can tie a band onto it. And made some of those with my little lathe out in the shed. That was good fun, but it was really fit. That was really one of those. Why would I spend a couple of pounds on buying something when I could spend a week making them?
Yeah.
But
if you're not that way inclined, you can use Hangout 5 code at underwaterforaging.co.uk and get 5% off everything else.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Right, cheers.
You like how I fit that in there?
Sounds going to be dead chuff.
It wasn't subtle, but one thing I would say though about the DIY side of things is that you can tend to see the time that you spend on this as a cost like you normally would.
Yeah.
But when it's DIY, I think I put the time that you enjoy, where you're spending enjoying what you're doing. That's on the benefit side. That's not a cost.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
definitely
for sure.
Good for your frame of mind, mental health, and well-being.
It's not something that we've discussed actually on the podcast, but I've had a question in my head for a long time regarding the difference between the bands that I use, which are the normal bands with the Dyneema bridle, and the metal, like you say, the screw-on versions.
Oh,
I've heard some horror stories about those metal.
I've got one here on my desk, which is one half of those metal ones.
Wishbone.
Yeah, the Cressy wishbones. It broke just about in the middle. And I have heard similar stories about these things when they're
taking fingers off and stuff.
Yeah, they get really sharp, as well as just the metal wishbones themselves. The ones that are they sit down in a groove.
Yeah,
I mean those sorts of things can skin a finger as well. I think it's called de-gloving.
Yeah,
don't Google that.
It's not good.
No, it really isn't. So I think my own preference. I mean, everyone does whatever suits them. I think my preference, because I'm a weakling, is I use twin 14mm bands on my spear guns because they're really easy to load, and you have two bands, and that makes up plenty enough power for what I seem to shoot at, and it also makes it really easy to unload the gun again safely. And I just buy the stuff by the meter, cut it to length, and then put some Dyneema bridles, wishbones on them, and it's a consumable, a bit like your cars with your brake pads and
and earthing on gearboxes. Yeah, I know all about that. Fucking
I mean, I've had a spear gun misfire as well, so it does happen. I prefer to have Dyneema rather than metal ones because I've had one misfire, and if you hold in the gun like a lot of us do, sort of midway, that's going to be a bit sore.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah, there's something to be said for having control of your spear gun, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure.
I think the idea is sometimes people will sort of drop their spear gun loaded to mark something. I mean, there's
Anthony.
My God. Stefan, how do you know? You weren't even there. Ben had a go at me. How were you there? I don't know.
I did have a go at you. I was
just trying to make sure the lobster wasn't going for you, and that I was going to shoot it if it did. Like if he was going to grab you and keep you out, I was going to shoot him.
There's a lot to be said. I mean,
you've learned your lesson, haven't you, Anthony?
I have, Dad.
But the health and safety topic is one that's close to my heart. I think I spend a lot of time at work on health and safety and environment, and it's a really interesting topic to be involved with, and it's definitely something that we can talk more about. I think within this sport, right?
What is it that you do for work, Stefan?
You know how Dan Mann has his dive everywhere thing. Well, I have something similar, which I call manage anything.
Nice.
I'll have a go.
Can you come to my house, please?
Yeah. But whether it's programs or projects or quality and performance, risk, change, there are a few things that I try and stay away from. Large IT projects, especially, just because they have an appalling failure rate, even when you do your very best with them. There's just something about those kinds of projects. But what I do for work right now is that, as you say, I work for the RLI. And for those that don't know what the RLI is, like I didn't, not that many years ago, it's an incredible organization. It's been around for 200 years. It's run on volunteer power. And the people who volunteer with the RLI and people who work for the RLI are incredibly passionate, talented, and lovely human beings. And it's quite humbling to be a member of staff and do your best to keep people safe, to try and make sure that we can be effective in what we do and maintain the capabilities to save lives at sea. It's a bit like the war photographers. They're running the other way when everyone else is running away. The RLI volunteers that go out to sea in the worst conditions. It's really something.
And that's the Royal National Lifeboat Institution.
It definitely is, yes. And we're celebrating our 200th birthday this year. And so there are a lot of events throughout the year. And there's some fixtures in the calendar, like the May Day events. There's actually something I'd plug, which is the May Day Mile event, where we're encouraging people to start a funding thing and then basically move a mile any which way you like every day in May and try and raise some money for a good cause. Because the whole thing is funded by voluntary donations. There's no government funding. So this is it's a very large operation. Just statistically speaking, we've got 238 lifeboat stations across the UK and Ireland. We've got a fleet which approaches something like 1,000 boats if you count every kind of boat. But, that includes all-weather lifeboats, includes inshore lifeboats, includes I think it's about 7 hovercraft. And hovercraft or something else.
They've still got hovercraft.
Yeah, where are they used then?
Well, the hovercraft is a very niche capability for some places where we need those. So mud flats, the places where you've got people and livestock and all sorts of things getting stuck in the mud, and the hovercraft is just ideal to be able to get to them and get them out. And that's we have a handful of those.
Where are they operating? Though, is that like the sort of Welsh Bristol area? Is there do you know?
Some of the estuaries.
I just want to go and get stuck so that I can get a lift back. I've never been on a hovercraft.
no, they're quite fun. As I say, they're a bit like the platypus of the lifeboating world. They're neither fowl nor fish. They're not boats. They're not planes. There's something in between. They're also not the people who skipper our boats. We call either coxswains on the all-weather lifeboats or helms on the inshore lifeboats. But the ones that fly the hovercraft are commanders, I believe. So it's really it's really very different. I digress a little bit, but the scale of the 238 lifeboat stations, and then we put lifeguards on about 240, 250 beaches every year. And the ramping up to the lifeguard season and training and everything is just an incredible feat. And it's again, quite humbling to be part of. And so I've worked for the RLI for about 7 years. And I can't say that any year has been the same as the one before, but it does feel like things are getting better from year to year too. But the scale of it is, I dug out some stats that are in the public domain. So in 2022, it cost about £188 million to run our life-saving services. And I think for every pound donated, over 80% is used to fund the life-saving activities. So it's a very lean operation. And that's the ethos is about leveraging our staff resource, a small pool of staff, to leverage the volunteer power. There are thousands and thousands of volunteers every day do incredible things, and it's quite something to be part of. So
I think it's amazing, and obviously what they do is amazing as well. I was reading that there's like 140 something thousand lives saved in the last 200 years, which is just mind-boggling, isn't it?
It is, and you see a lot of the activities through the TV program Saving Lives at Sea. I can't remember what season we're up to, but it really gives you a glimpse into the world. And there's some really inspirational stories. There's also something we can take heed of. The stories that people tell of how things went wrong and the sorts of things that they did to get themselves in and out of trouble with a bit of help. It's some of it is absolutely harrowing,
A second ago, you mentioned the 188 million, that it sort of is the cost of business or sort of the turnover. But I've always had it in my mind that the RNLI is completely a charity. So that 188 million cost, that is all from donations, or is there any sort of money coming from government? Because being a royal institution, is there anything coming from His Majesty now, or just
no? There isn't. Where there is a bit of public funding coming in is through the lifeguard service, where a proportion of the lifeguard service is funded by local authorities and landowners, but it doesn't cover the costs of providing the service. So. In a similar way to the services we provide to the UK and Irish Coast Guards, it's an unbeatable proposition in that we can deliver services, or rather, I think using the word service delivery is maybe the wrong term. Mm-hmm. We can provide certain specialist capabilities that are available 24/7. And
I think I probably used about £1 million of that budget already, because I was diving off Thurston one day. You boys know the story already, I think. When it wasn't very choppy, but it had a bit of a chop to it. And I don't know if you know Thurston very well, but I went a fair way past the rock in the middle, not much further than me and you went, Ben, one day. And all of a sudden, one of the offshore bloody boats turned up, and another inshore boat as well, from RNLI, and they were like sort of doing some funny signs at me that I thought they'd like ask me if I wanted McDonald's or something.
YMCA.
It turned out they was actually asking me if I was okay, which now I know, obviously, and I know how to respond now. But at the time, I was like, yeah, fine, yeah, thumbs up, whatever. They sort of like,
they're going, he's drowning.
Yeah, they were looking at me a bit like, what is going on here? I showed them the spear gun, and then they realised why I was there. And then obviously they were like, yeah, pointing towards the shore, and I was like, why do I need to go back in? I'm all right.
I'm fine.
Yeah. But I gave in a bit, really. It was impossible to talk to them, like, because they were on the boat, and I was, didn't want to come too close, I guess. So I just went in the end, to be honest. And then I contacted the local lifeguard, the RNLI station to that area, and just like sort of apologised and gave a donation, just to sort of try and make amends somewhat. But it turns out there's someone, a sort of local bystander or whatever, saw me in the water and thought I was in trouble and called RNLI. So, I felt really bad. So I gave a little donation, but probably nowhere near going to cover the cost for that one.
No, don't worry about that. I think the one of the things that are not immediately obvious to people is that the way it works is that people either get into trouble or see someone else in trouble. The thing to do is you dial 999 and you ask for the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard will then dispatch the assets they think is the right asset for the job. It may be that this lends itself to a helicopter, or it lends itself to, say, a hovercraft, or it lends itself to an over-the lifeboat or an inshore lifeboat. And they will, and it's not all the RNLI, of course. We don't operate the helicopters. And there are independent lifeboats organizations as well. Depends on where you are geographically. But the Coast Guard are the coordinating authority. And so those are the mechanics of it. And this is where we're back into what can we do to, on the one hand, stay out of trouble, but also know what to do if we get into trouble. One of the things we talk a lot about is to always have a means of calling for help. It sounds obvious, but you're not going to get very far calling for help, shouting. You obviously might have a whistle on your float. That's kind of helpful, but it's kind of hard to beat the capabilities that you get through having a VHF radio or even a mobile phone under certain conditions. And of course, there's something called personal locator beacons, which I'm a big fan of myself. So on my wish list of things that I know would be I wouldn't say a game changer, but certainly a greater sense of comfort is if you're out with your buddies spearfishing, if one of you has a PLB, that makes a massive difference to your ability to request help right away. So until I can afford one of those, what I do have is I've got a waterproof pouch with an old school little Nokia phone in it. It's got 2 weeks of battery life. What it does that's different from my smartphone, apart from not really wanting to take my smartphone into salt water, it's just if you want to break something, just take it in the sea. So I've got a cheap Nokia phone, which it's got 2 weeks worth of battery life. It's got actual physical keys that you can press. Might not be able to press them with your glove on, but you can use something else. And you can, one of the things I use it for is very basic. I just send my wife a text message to say, I'm going to be a bit later than I thought, or I'm now ashore on my way back to the car. Just short messages to say, I'm absolutely fine. And of course, I wouldn't say of course, but I've yet to need to use that phone for notifying anyone that things are not fine. But it's something. I think one of the waterproof ICOM VHF radios would be brilliant too. But a PLB is definitely something to look into. And
would you suggest like any? Well, I mean, I don't know if it's possible, but probably not. I'd imagine contacting the local service and just telling them that you're going in, especially if it's in a very odd area, I guess.
Don't really know how to answer that. I don't think it does any harm to let people know where you are and what you're doing.
Yeah,
it provides a degree of situational awareness. But just looping back to something else, which is around the having a means of calling for help. The other thing that I jotted a note down about the having a buddy. We talk a lot about diving with a buddy, right? And I dive a lot with my buddy Simon, for example. Shout out to Simon, friend of the show. And philosophically speaking, actually the better number isn't you and a buddy, it's 3. It's 2 people can deal with one casualty a lot more easily than one person can deal with. I mean, I would struggle a bit with Anthony, Richard, or Ben on my own.
I'm pretty small.
What are you trying to say?
I'm just saying, if you're in a situation where you're trying to administer first aid to your buddy at the same time as trying to call for help, or even something a little bit more pedestrian, like one of you.
It's easier to take Ben's bra off.
The injuries that the things that happen aren't very often, they're not the things you expect.
Yeah.
We think a lot about what happens while we're in the water, but you're just as likely to injure yourself either going towards the water, because we're going on the seashore. There's slippery seaweed. There's bladder wrack, which is just from hell. That poppy seaweed that full of gel, perfect for just slipping around on. And so moving around rocky areas and carrying 20, 25 extra kilos of kit, like your lead weight belt and your float and your torches, and of course coming back you're carrying, conservative estimate, 10 kilos of fish, obviously. but yeah, there is that element of you're coming out of the water, you're already a bit knackered, and you're potentially carrying the same amount of kit you came in with, but now it's all wet, and you might have something to carry if you've had a lucky day. So I think the being in a position for two chaps to support the third person who needs a bit of help, and just help each other carry the kit. If it's something minor, of course, you find your way back to your cars and then you sort yourselves out. But if you do need help, call 999. It's what it's there for. So
there's definitely something to be said on sort of, like you were saying, the ICOM VHF, and sort of the amount of money that we spend on gear, especially the fancy stuff, carbon fins and wetsuits and floats that we've all been discussing. Yet one of the things that likely isn't on the top of a newbie's list in the first 2 years, which is when they're going to likely need it most, is a VHF radio or a PLB, which, a decent ICOM VHF, a really decent one, is 90 quid. And it's, that is the difference literally between life and death. I still haven't got one. But
Although you do have a £1,400 watch.
that yeah, that's true. That I said that does things that it definitely doesn't. But
we just had to go there, didn't we?
yeah.
See,
Thanks, Ben.
I'm trying to convince my wife to let me get one.
What, a watch or a VHF?
No, the Garmin Descent. But I have a PLB, so I'm fine.
Do you? And to be fair, I always carry my phone on the float, don't I? So
I've always got my phone.
I picked up a cheap one off someone I know that was he has like a high business stuff, and they had like a year left on the battery, certified battery, so because it has to be swapped by someone who knows what they're doing. So yeah, I got mine pretty cheap, but I'll just get it renewed, send it off, 50 quid, new battery, job done.
That's really good.
Well, on the topic of one of the other things that I can't tell anyone very much about spearfishing. We've got lots of club members that can tell you a lot more about spearfishing. That's not really my forte. The amount of fish that I've brought home. It's not trivial, but I think...
I was going to say, I had a look at your spreadsheet that you brought along to the Dorset catch-up, and I was pretty impressed, Steffen.
That's very kind of you to say. What's the thing we say? It's not sustainable. It's selective. Well, I'm very selective, and
that's my saying.
Yeah, no, it's not just that I'm completely incompetent. I do let a lot of fish just swim on their merry way, and I like seeing them, of course, but I take what I want to eat, and I eat what I take. So that's
perfect ethos.
I think that's important. But we were just talking about watches. I think I was off on a bit of a segue into being a thrifty spearo. That my wife and I both work for charity, so I can't justify spending however much I might like it, hundreds and hundreds of pounds on this, that, and the other. So I try and be inventive where I can. So it goes back to trying to make your own stuff, which is also enjoyable. But your Garmin Descent, which has GPS in it and a dive computer and so on. I've got those capabilities across 2 wrist watches. And the thing is, your GPS, I don't think works underwater anyway. So what I do is I've got a Garmin Instinct, which I put on my float. And that, on the one hand, I set it to just track where my float has been. And then I can see that afterwards, like, the snail trail of where you've been.
Yeah.
But also, if I then come across something interesting, like a lobster hidey hole, good mark, then I can mark that spot on the watch. And that's basically what I got it for. And that works really well. But then what I wear on myself is just the dive computer that tells me my depth and surface time.
Dive time, yeah.
I think the surface time is the most important element of what your watch can really tell you, because you kind of, it's easy to lose track of how long you've been on the surface. Should you really be diving again already? You kind of get a bit excited. So I run a hospice service for Suunto dive computers. One of the nicest people in British spearfishing, Dan Newman, he gave me his old scratch battered Suunto D3, and it still worked, and it did what I needed it to do. And then I think I dropped it on the street, and it got run over by a car. It didn't seem to. Yeah, I had it not secured to my boat float. I was carrying it in from the car, and then I went back for the next thing, and I saw it lying in the middle of the road. Oh, well, that's lucky. But I think someone must have run it over, because the next time I took it out, it got a bit wobbly. So then I got another one just like it from Dave Stevens' dad, Alan, which was very kind of him. So you can get quite far with older technology. And,
well, my £1,400 dive watch is now used solely and purely to see how many dives I've done in competition with Dave O'Callaghan. We go out diving, and he's 69. He's turning 70 at some point this year.
It's just a shame.
And and it's like, we'll do the scallops. And it's like at the end of it, we've done scallops. We then go diving for fish. And before we've even started the boat engine back up or got the anchor out, we're both looking at our watches going, right, how many fucking dives? So I reckon if I say I've done 40, if I say I've done 54, he can't have done more than that. And he's like, yeah, I've done 59. I'm like, fuck. Oh, dear. I need to drown him.
He's a machine, man. He's still going.
I still think he's full of shit. I think he makes it up because he never shows me his watch.
Yeah, if you watch him, he is up and down quite a lot.
Yeah,
it's pretty impressive. He is a machine.
My favorite memory of David, right, and literally never forget this, is me coming in from I think it was my second ever competition national, and I had literally one fish, and I was coming in, I was thinking, oh, that was a really hard day. I bet everyone's done really crap, right? And maybe I've done okay, I don't know, whatever. And I'm walking up the beach, I'm knackered, and in comes Davo. This is before he had his knee done. And he's hobbling up the beach, literally hobbling, with a whole stringer of fish around his waist. And there's God knows how many flatfish around him. And I'm thinking, what the actual? Man, the thing is, as you say, he's 69, man. It's how the hell does he do it? I don't know. Yeah.
Well, it's inspiring, isn't it? I think there's some sports where you have to sort of hang up your trainers at a certain age. And there are others I think spearfishing is one of those sports that you can enjoy for,
I think from that saying, I'm going to have to steal David's trainers because he ain't hanging them up himself. Bless him. So
it's amazing. There is at least 5, maybe 10, what you might call proper veterans of the Spiro world that still get out probably more than we do. I think it's amazing, and I don't know of any sports where you have the all the way through from the proper youngsters through to the proper seniors.
Yeah,
and I really like that about the sport because there's so much knowledge transfer between the different generations of Spiros, and as much as everybody's reasonably protective of spots, they're still more than happy to lend a hand to the newcomers.
Yeah, I know. I was having this conversation with there's one of the few events that we almost had last year. I was talking to a chap who was he was along as the dad of someone else, and so I asked him, "So, have you done any spearfishing?" Yeah, I've done a bit. Turned out he was, I can't remember how many times, national champion. It was several generations of Spiros there. And yeah, we had this conversation about, it was somewhere near Durdle Door. I was describing a place that I'd been, and it was just brilliant. And he said, I know where that is. I've been there. And he was just recounting this double figure sea bass he'd had in exactly the same spot. And it just makes you think, the rocks don't move. The rocks, you can be visiting those same places for, decades.
Yeah. I've had a few of those experiences with Dave where I'll either be on his boat, he's on mine, and I'll be like, right, I'm gonna take Dave to my new spot. He's shared so many spots with me. I'm gonna show him a spot now, and we sort of anchor up, and he goes, "What are we going for? Lobsters?" Fuck's sake! How do you know? And he's like, "Oh, this is one of my old lobster hotels." I'm like,
lobster hotels.
We get out, and he's like, "Yeah, no, no, you're on the wrong rock. You need to go 10 meters this way, and that is where they are." And I'm like, and he pulls out this giant lobster. I'm like, "Fuck!" There's nothing that beats knowledge and experience, in this. And even in my short time of 2.5-ish years, I think it is now, the amount that I can see that I've grown personally, and how much I see. How much Ben's grown, excuse me, but not physically, mate. Not physically.
Are you calling me fat?
Yeah. Because we're still on the topic of gear, and obviously you're a tinkerer. What is I suppose it's two questions. The first one will be, what's your favorite piece of gear? And then the second one being, what's the piece of gear you wish you could invent?
What I wish I could invent, that's a tricky one. If I could think of it, I would just stop doing it.
Yeah, don't say it on the podcast, actually.
No, but in terms of my favorite kit, there's a couple of things that I enjoy very much. But I mean, I've been fortunate to be able to upgrade my kit from what I started out with, and I've sort of gone through cycles of being able to upgrade my float from the first one to the second one to now having the Mutt's proverbial. And that's very good. I like my carbon fins as well. They were not a trivial amount of money, but they also weren't the most expensive ones you can get. They're perfectly fine for me. I don't have much to compare them to, but
what brand are they?
They're from Dave from Fins for You, and they are soft fins, which works well for me. I don't get cramps. They just do what they're supposed to do. They seem not too fragile either, and as long as you look after them and don't lose them, well, they should do you for years. So there's no
standard foot pockets.
Pathos foot pockets, and molded to my feet with the whole hot water shebang.
Nice.
It makes a huge difference. Of course, it means that you go from having ambidextrous, if you like, ambidextrous fins to now you have a left and a right one. But yeah, no, I was kind of kicking myself after I did it. I thought, why didn't I do this sooner? They're so much more comfortable.
I still haven't done it. Does it work?
I haven't done it either. Does it make
it makes a huge difference. My foot pockets were squeezing and compressing my neoprene socks at the toe end. And while it wasn't uncomfortable, I think my feet got a lot colder because of it. And after I molded them to my feet, they were so much better. And I wasn't kicking myself, but I was thinking, this was so easy. Why didn't I do this sooner? It's just...
So I know that we'll probably be able to find the sort of tutorials on it on YouTube, but what's the process for doing it?
The general process is that you pour, you can do it a couple of different ways, but using a hairdryer or hot air pistol, those sorts of things. You just gently warm up your rubber foot pockets until they become more pliable, and then you have your feet in them, and then you let them cool down into the shape you've now made them. And you can stretch them very considerably. And I don't think it's so easy to go the other way. But it's not terribly difficult. Talk to some of the guys who have done it before.
Too hot to touch, or?
Well, I was just going to say, I did mine not so gently.
That's how you learn.
Not like you, Rich.
No, not like me at all.
We don't read instructions.
Well, no, I don't. Only because I had my old friends, I had the Pathos foot pockets, and as you said, Stefan, the pressure gets on top of the foot, doesn't it? And then I found it's giving me cramps and all sorts. It's horrible. But again, I just had to mold them, and I tried the whole sort of gentle approach at it, but it didn't really do much. I did get told that if you put a neoprene sock on, I put 2 on because I was being a bit of a pussy, but I put 2 socks on and then heated it up and then just shoved it on my foot and just waited for it to cool down. I then learned that if you have a bucket of ice cold water, it helps it cool down quicker and to the shape. So I tried that. Still wasn't 100% happy with it. So then I just got the missus' hairdryer. I had to buy her a new one in the end. And I stuck it in the actual foot pocket on the hotter setting, and I just left it. And then eventually I put my foot in it. It was so hot, it actually burnt my foot through 2 neoprene socks. And but that actually worked. I got the correct shape then I wanted.
Okay. Well, if I remember correctly, I think I had my feet in them when I was doing it. And I was just gently heating it up until the whole sort of thickness of the foot pocket at the top was reaching the higher temperature, and that worked pretty well.
I must say that. Sorry, I must say that now that I've got the C4 foot pockets, they are like gloves compared to the Pathos.
Have you had to mold them as well, or just?
Yeah, so I was finding it a bit tricky to get them on. That was only because it was literally like one size too small. I got one size bigger and I've not had to do anything. Like, they literally are amazing. They're so comfortable.
They're a different shape at the end, aren't they? The Pathos ones are kind of like flatter.
Yeah,
more like
Pathos ones have got like a rigid plastic that goes over the top of your foot, whereas the C4 ones are just complete soft all the way around, and also underwater foraging socks then. So yeah, they're just so comfy, man. Honestly, I wouldn't go with anything else now.
Are you selling these? Is that what you're saying?
Rich's friend is. Our friend.
Our sponsor is.
Oh, what a coincidence. Yeah. To go to the thing that I would advocate, it's not an obvious thing, but it's something that it actually makes a big difference for me, is the footwear you wear as you're going to the sea and getting out of the sea again. I don't know how many pairs of socks you've shredded yourselves, but you can go through like so many socks, and they're not super expensive, but you can actually get your socks to last more than one season if you wear your Crocs. And my Crocs are just about famous. I think I'm that numpty with the orange Crocs, and I think my orange Crocs have become one of my favorite bits of kit, and I'll tell you for why. So I think I picked them up for a couple of pounds at a car boot sale, and they happen to be a particular brand and model. They are the original Crocs, and they're the Bistro model. Now, the Bistro model is used in healthcare and hospitals, in restaurants, and so on, because it's anti-slip and it's got a glued-on rubber sole underneath in two places, and it's really hard wearing, and it's just perfect for clambering around rocks. And also because of that thick foam sole that's on there, really helps cushion your feet when you're sort of trying to make your way across pointy rocks and the sort of stuff that we have to traverse as we're trying to get into the water or try to get out of the water again. So what I do is I basically have all my kit strapped to my boat float, and I just walk straight into the sea. And then when I get to sort of certain depth, then I take my Crocs off, put my fins on, and off I go. And I do that in reverse when I come out of the water. It's also the getting out of the water bit. Do you have that thing where you get out of the water and you really need a wee, and you come across someone and they really want to talk to you about what you're doing? They're trying to make out what are you doing? What is this? Can I just ask you a lot of questions about what you're doing? And you don't want to be rude, but at the same time, it really might be running a bit late. So I've taken to sort of getting to maybe shouting distance from the shore, and then just getting everything ready, put my float on my back, and then I can just walk straight out of the water and not sort of be on the beach having to field all these questions. We find in a bit of a rush for various reasons.
There's some of the best wheeze I've ever had talking to people. It's like, that's and then that smile comes across my face. And it's like,
this is why you're not allowed within.
I'm talking to you, and you don't know what I'm doing.
This is why he's not allowed to go anywhere near schools.
Only 500 yards. What are you on about?
So that's
Crocs.
Where do you guys stand on Piscettes?
Love them.
I've just got one.
You just got one, haven't you?
Yeah. So I a couple of weekends ago, we went out to meet Ben, Damon, and Davo, and wore my polo sub for the first time.
Oh.
And other than trying to remember that I've now got a Piscette and not immediately just weeing, because the Piscette I find is actually more comfortable when it's under the your top strap, so it's not just hanging out the edge. I need to remember that it's like the first few times I start weeing and they go, shit, no, stop, right, now get it out, do the job, then put it back in and put it away. When I got back and jumped in the shower to take the suit off, absolutely no smell whatsoever, be it on my skin or in the suit. It's like I'm now definitely a Piscette man. It's 100%. Wouldn't go without it now.
It's quite daunting. It's quite daunting, the idea of cutting a hole in your, you spend a lot of time trying to avoid getting holes in your suit, and then you go off and then you cut a hole in your suit to glue on a P valve. But I think there are definitely times of the year where it would be really nice not to
be sloshing around in it.
Yeah, well, as a rule, I don't wee in my suits, but I have been told off once by the harbour master near Weymouth, because I'd gone and stood on a rock on the breakwater to sort myself out, and then I went back in and went swimming and said, you're not allowed within however many meters of the breakwater. That's a good few years ago now, but I can see the logic of having a P valve installed in your suit bottoms.
No, with what you're saying on Crocs, I agree as well. It's I've always been using. I've just got a pair of black standard Crocs. They are quite quite slippy on the wrong surface. Mine aren't your special type of croc. But I've then gone to a rocky, shore dive and forgotten the crocs. And it's like now I miss them. It's just, the pleasure and the advantage that they give is really good.
And again, their safety equipment. If we're going back to talking about the risks around, waltzing about on slippy rocks near the sea, if you fall where you are, there's a pretty good chance you could really hurt yourself. So not slipping is definitely a good thing. The other thing I found was that the color, the high vis orange that my Crocs are, these are not my first Crocs, but I bought some cheap ones which were camel color. It's the worst possible color you can have. How are you going to? So I ended up having one of those Crocs because the other one floated away, and there was no chance in hell I was going to notice because it was
camouflage.
Yeah, it was not far off where you got where you got mugged by a seal, Richard.
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's where I lost my that's where I lost my Crocs. And
that seal's enjoying that Croc now.
Yeah, well, in the same place. The other thing about having good footwear is that it means you can go ashore in places you didn't expect to go ashore, and you have a much better chance of being able to get from where you land to wherever you need to go. And around Portland, that can be some tricky territory.
Nice.
And I mean, there is of course the shame factor, the Crocs. I think there's that. One of my favorite films, Idiocracy. I can't remember. It's from around the time that Crocs came out, and they basically, the props people said, let's find something that looks a bit futuristic but looks like dumbass shoes. And they're wearing orange Crocs in the film to be in the future. So I've got the dumbass shoes, but they are just perfect for traipsing around with quite a lot more kilos on top of your own weight. So that would be my it's not a plug for the brand. It's just that I found them to be surprisingly good.
Nice. And obviously, going back to way back, we're talking about the clubs. You're actually a member of the LIC as well as the Dorset Club. How come? Yes. How come you Because have I seen you in a national before? I don't think so.
I think I did take part in one.
You did, didn't you?
Yeah. It was
so. Would you recommend clubs to newbies, or?
Absolutely. I think you probably agree that if you want to accelerate your learning journey in lots of ways, there's no better way to do that than to join a club. I mean, there's the stuff that you will learn much more quickly, the mistakes that you avoid making and learning the hard way. There's so many advantages. The reason I'm a member of two clubs is that there wasn't a BSA Dorset when I needed it. And I ran into one of the guys from the London club, and we had a little chat. And so I looked them up, joined the club, and hey presto. And then later on, the local club got started, and I'm still a member of both clubs. And I think the advantages of having people in the clubs, from Anthony's perspective and our sort of mutual interest, having as many of the spearing fraternity community involved with the BSA, the better, because we can reach people, we can talk to people about a number of issues, we can sort of help each other out in lots of ways to either not get in trouble, but also to have that, reach, input, feedback, all that, but also just from a purely personal perspective that you get. You're suddenly in touch with a bunch of people who know the sorts of things that you would probably like to know. And they might, there's always a brisk trade in secondhand equipment because people upgrade their kit all the time. And so somebody's second or third best thing becomes somebody's best thing, all the time.
Yeah.
I think there's something environmentally good about that too, that, we're not just buying loads and loads of new stuff. I mean, we get the best use out of it all instead of just being in someone's attic.
Yeah, I mean, I get asked by a lot of newbies a lot of the time, what's the best thing they can do to, when they get into spearfishing. I just every time I just tell them join a club because, as you say, being part of a club, you just learn so much. And
But
even myself, I was a few years in before I joined up, and massively helped me really.
The other thing, it depends on it. It's different for everybody. I mean, some people have a background in diving. They're supremely confident in the water, like my buddy Simon, who was a scuba instructor. There are people like that. But there are also people who are attracted, basically getting into the sport cold. They have zero free diving skills. They have limited confidence in the water, and they just start doing too many things at once. And I think there is something to be said for the foundation of what we're doing is free diving, and to be a competent and safe person to be around in lots of ways. Not looking at you, Anthony. There is something about that. We can be a danger to ourselves and others if we don't get this right. So I do think there's something about the clubs as a foundation as well for safety culture. You've got to give a shout out to my old diving club in Copenhagen, the Jernlungerne diving club in Herlev. It's one of the safest clubs that I know of, and they were really innovative in terms of their approach to keeping scuba diving fun, but also safe. One of the systems they invented was like a buddy line system. It was brilliant. It was nylon ropes with the Gardena brand of hose pipes and things. Basically, nylon ropes with those Gardena quick couplings. So basically, everything was based around really high quality plastic parts that you could, quickly connect or disconnect. And the standard setup was, I think, a buddy line. So you were always connected to your diving buddy, and then you had in the middle of your buddy line another line going up to an SMB, so that your safety boat could see where you were, that sort of thing. And it was really just really simple, really effective, really cheap as well. And there's that as there's so many things that I just learned almost through osmosis about safety culture and doing things a certain way in the water. And I think a lot of the things I benefit from today is just things I learned in the club.
Nice. Yeah, we've got the BSA who's going to have hopefully at some point very soon, once I get some time, a big campaign for Diver Below, Go Slow, which is similar to the campaign that was designed and run by, I believe it was the Australians. And we've sort of, I say Rachel has designed some really good artwork, free of charge, not to me. It's mental abuse. But we're going to get some big stickers made up, get them distributed. And because that's another thing, is that it's not just our awareness of safety. Ours is, we need to do as much as we possibly can to be safe ourselves and not put ourselves in dangerous situations. But it's also making other people aware that orange buoy is not a target. It might not be a pot. It might be a diver, scuba or Spiro or free. And it's actually, it's against the law to go near it. It's try and put that out there that it is risking people's lives, especially fucking jet skis. Oh God, I hate jet skis.
Well, I think being a bit generous to people again. You don't know what you don't know, and it's the personal watercraft and boating in general is very accessible. If you've got the money, just go do it. There's no exam to pass. You can just go do it.
They let me buy a boat.
Case in point.
Exactly. The RNLI in the local Timoth RNLI is like, fuck, got a boat.
But there is that element of education, training, and experience that you gain in anything. That's what makes a competence, really. And you can't expect somebody who goes off and hires or buys a jet ski, for example, to know everything there is to know. I know that some countries are very gung-ho about people being licensed to do anything that they want to get into. And I think there's something to be said for that too. But in some cases, it can just become a sort of taxation money-making scheme as well, in a sense that you have to buy a license to be allowed to do something that isn't inherently, who does it benefit? But I do think that we can do a lot to keep ourselves safer and visible and engage with the various people through the BSA and other ways to try and spread the word and awareness about what those flags mean, and make sure that every one of us has a tall enough flagpole with a visible flag on it, and that those things all.
So, and that's one of the biggest reasons that I stood for chair of BSA, was that I fell in love with the sport and everything to do with it as soon as I got involved. And it's just trying to make sure that the BSA and its committee and the membership is getting as much as involved as it can with safety, with lobbying. We've got Gordon Murphy, who is just a fantastic asset to the committee, in that he basically does lobbying as a full-time day job. So it turns him on and he loves it. And it's something that I think the BSA needs to be on top of, because like you say, at the moment, spearfishing as a sport really isn't policed or safety policed by anybody governmental. All we have is the IFCA recommended, size limits for taking fish. There's not anything to do with, that I'm aware of, and there is no law on buying a spear gun under the age of 18, I don't believe. So anybody can go and buy a spear gun. You don't need a license. And like we were talking about earlier on, it is as lethal as a machine gun. It is as lethal as a very large knife, and they're all licensed and require, IDs for. But like you were saying a second ago, also the BSA wants to be there to be able to have a voice to make sure that the government doesn't go, here's a sport that we can make some money out of. Let's license it and require them all to have a specific level of insurance individually so that we can make our friends in insurance companies a shitload of money.
There's something to be said for discretion being the better part of valor as well. That we try and be good neighbors to other water users. Don't be that guy who's blocking the obvious way to sail your boat in a narrow area. All those things about, it's fine to say, yeah, you need to keep a certain distance from my float, but okay, where am I going to go now?
Don't spearfish in the mouth of an estuary.
No. So I think there's something to be said as well for being, like everybody else, just considerate of other water users, and to engage with people about what is it we do and what it is and what it isn't. I think there are a lot of things that we could do that would portray us all in a bad light. There's if you think of the blood sports that get a bad reputation, you see people letting loose 1,000 pheasants and then just blasting them out of the sky, lining them all up, and then taking some photos and saying, what a great day we had. That just doesn't sit right with a lot of people, myself included. And similarly, if we do an event where we have a competitive event, and we're, this goes back to those conversations about, taking the fish that we want to eat and then eating the fish that we take. And even within the competitive events, the very few we have every year, I think it's really important that we what do you call it? Walk the talk.
Yeah. So on a safety front, going back to, the flags and awareness and the soon-to-be BSA campaign, and I'm asking you this on a personal standpoint, not from an RNLI's standpoint, but with your sort of work in the RNLI, what's your opinion on the difference between, well, not the difference between, but the better version of the dive flag? Because we have two versions.
Yeah, there's the alpha flag and there's the red and white one. So there's the blue and white and there's a red and white. And the alpha flag is our standard flag here.
International.
Yeah. And the red and white one, I don't know if we call it the paddy flag. But
Diver down flag.
yeah, I think they are. I think the red and white one is possibly more easily visible. I think that's good. There's a lot to be said for the color red with the color white. It's not just because it reminds me of the Danish flag. Or well, I think so just color wise, personally, I do think that the red and white one is more easily visible. It catches your eye in a different way. Unfortunately, that isn't the sort of the standard dive flag, and the standard dive flag is also pretty good. So I'm going to be on the fence a little bit.
Yeah, I cannot understand when the flag was being created that the people in the committee decided, do you know what 2 colors would be really good? You know, the ones that are always there in the sea, white and blue. You know, fucking well done, guys. Well done. Like any other colors you could have chosen. However, blue and white, it's a wave. I cannot understand why the alpha flag exists.
It's like so many other things where you've got competing standards. These things just kind of happen.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I think it's really important to get started right with something. If you're going to create a standard, give some thought to it up front. And because once you've established a standard, it's really bloody difficult to undo
to change it. Yeah.
Just think about your three-pronged plugs.
Yeah. No, I'm a big advocate for the diver down flag being the flag that we all use, which is the red with the diagonal white stripe. It's just more obvious. You see a big red flag and you go, "Oh, what's that?" As you see sort of a blue and white. Yeah. But anyway, what do you think, Ben Rich? Don't just fucking laugh.
There's a flag. I mean,
yeah, but so am I just by myself then?
No, I mean, like, I think we should allow either. I don't think it matters. Like, my float has a red and white one attached to it, so I should be able to use that in a competition, which I think technically is against the rules at the moment. But I don't think it matters that much. The important thing is to have a flag, have a float. Let's not be too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's that debate could rage on for a few years, but let's start off with having a decent pole on a flag on our nice big visible floats, and that's a good enough start. But there is something to be said for that conversation about, well, if we're going to have one standard, let's pick the one that makes the most sense to people.
I'll message my mate Charles and see what he can do in the family, and we'll get rid of the blue and white one. We'll just get rid of white.
Whatever you do, don't start introducing a third one, because you start getting creative and think, but wouldn't it even be even better if we had this one and suddenly we've got 3 competing standards?
Can't we put a yin-yang sign on it? Because it'd be really good.
Anyway, moving on from flags.
Yeah. No more fun with flags.
No more fun with flags.
Stefan, we're going to bring this to a close in a bit, but before we do, is there anything that anybody you wanted to shout out to? Do you want to tell us where we can find out more information about the RNLI, perhaps?
Of course, rnli.org. I am, of course, here in purely personal capacity, and my opinions are my own. And I think, as I say, it's a really interesting year, with 200 years worth of history and the same challenges that any other organization has because of the times we live in. There will always be organizational challenges, and we, like any other charity, need any support we can get. I think some of the things we've talked about today, I hope, have helped just the listeners for the Spearfishing podcast and anyone else to just be mindful of what they do and how they think through what they're about to do, making sure that they take with them the sorts of things they should always have with them. Again, that means of calling for help. And have a look, as you say, have a look at the public-facing website. There's a lot there about campaigns, events, and a number of resources that I think are really helpful.
Thank you so much, Stefan, for coming on. Hugely appreciate it. It was a fascinating episode, and hopefully we will catch up again very soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Cheers, Steffen.
Cheers,
Yeah.
Steffen.
1, 2, 3, 4.
That was a cracking episode, wasn't it, boys?
Come on, mate. I mean, it was.
Yeah. Well, except the bit for where Anthony was talking about flags forever.
Oh,
yeah.
God, the flags.
I don't see what your two problems is.
Well, the fact that it's like 10:30 at night and I just want to get to bed.
Honestly, some of us have got to literally go back to work. Never mind.
Well, yeah. You should probably try to do some work in the daytime, mate.
Yeah, I know. That's what Rachel says. Get out of bed and do it during the day, but never mind.
Yeah, no, that was good. Yeah. I mean, I got Stefan Inspector Gadget because he's always coming up with new stuff and it's cool to have a look at. I mean, I don't know about you boys, but I'm nowhere near like that. I just buy everything. I know it's bad, but
I think it's bad. Like, I guess it's some of that's about time as well. Like, I really like the idea of putting stuff together, and I often think, oh, it'd be quite cool if you put this together with this and whatever. But then I get called to make dinner or put kids to bed or all those other things, and time spearfishing is pretty precious, isn't it? But I think that as the kids get older and less responsibilities, I think I'd love to experiment with those kind of things. I think it'd be pretty cool.
I'm very much looking forward to the time that the kids are old enough that we can get them out. I like that Steffen takes out his 18-year-old and 13-year-old.
Yeah, that would be proper magic. Yeah.
I've even had Bo asking me, he's like, Dad, can I come dive with you to cut? Because just this weekend, I really want a crab. I really want to eat a crab. And I'm like, oh my God, you're so cute. You're really cute. I'm like, I've got a lobster in the freezer. He's like, okay, well, it's going to need to defrost. So if you can get it out next time, then that'd be good. Like, oh God, you're cute. Like, yeah, we'll get you in the sea, get you into spearfishing. But yeah, looking forward to that.
Get him in the juniors, man. Start smashing the juniors section of the comps.
That's it. And he can have a red and white flag, not a blue and white. Because fuck the blue and white flag. Oh God, I need to remember I'm the BSA chairman. Sorry, international community. I just don't believe in your flag, but never mind. Oh, I have received a message from the Cornwall Spearfishing Club to say that the Talon Bay spearfishing event is officially on Facebook. So there is a calendar, a date to add to your calendar. I haven't even opened the message, but you hear it here first. The Cornish National, I believe it is on Facebook and as an event. So go and check it out.
Cool. I did have, I just before we jumped online, I had someone from Hawaii tag us on Instagram saying that they were listening to one of our episodes before they went diving. I just thought it was really cool. Yeah, I just thought it was really cool, wasn't it? Like someone in Hawaii is listening to us three.
In Hawaii?
Load of shit. And he's going diving in Hawaii. I'm thinking, bloody hell.
Does he want to swap with me? Does he want to move to fucking Dawlish? If you're listening in Hawaii,
how many countries are you up to now on the
oh mate, I've lost count.
Thing?
Not as many as Steffen's been to.
Yeah, I've lost count. It's got to be over like 70 now or something like that.
Yeah, it was a pretty impressive list. I can't actually look at it right now, but
yeah, it's over 70, man. And there's some very obscure countries on there as well, like places that I don't think anyone would even visit, to be honest. But yeah, that's really cool.
Good spearfishing.
Well, yeah, some of them. I mean, Colombia's on the list.
Czech Republic, Ethiopia, Barbados, Taiwan, Angola, Moldova.
Someone in Iraq was listening to us.
Nice. There's countries on here that, well, I didn't think were countries. I thought that, I won't read them out because I'm definitely going to offend someone, but like there's places that I don't even know. Really obscure ones.
Like who? Like where?
There's a lot of countries that end with Stan.
Well, I've never heard of
Kazakhstan.
I don't know how to say it. Cabo Verde?
Cape Verde?
Yeah. No, Cabo Verde.
Cabo Verde. I've never heard of
Cabo Verde.
Yeah. Well, you haven't either by the time of it.
If you are listening, reach out, send us a message, show us where you are. And show us some of your spearfishing videos or photos. We'd very much like to see all of your stories, all of your histories. And if you are remotely interesting, we might get you on. Ben's got some news.
Well, not so much in news, but I had a nice message from Axel this week.
Oh, yeah. Ostovik.
Yeah. Apparently he messaged you, Rich, but you obviously didn't respond because you're busy.
I don't know why I'm a social media person. I have no idea.
Anyway, I think he was inviting us, or at least he was calling out that I'm going to get the words wrong here. Kristiansund Cup, which is basically a competition in Norway, is happening on the 2nd of August. We should probably just get him on to talk about this. Last year, terrible weather, but delivered things like 5 kilogram cod, 7 kilogram pollock, ling, monkfish. Yeah, it sounds pretty cool, actually. I was thinking it'd be cool if we went.
Yeah. Well, when?
You guys might be up for that. And that's on the 2nd to 3rd of August.
This year?
Yeah, I might not get away with it. So don't hold me to this yet. But 2nd to 3rd of August. So if anybody's interested to learn
Sponsor
more,
us. Learn more.
Yes, if you go to Facebook and type in Kristiansund Cup 2024, apologies if I've butchered that. That's Christian with a K, Sund, S-U-N-D,
Kristiansund
2024. There's an invite on there. There's loads of details. It looks amazing. And I think this is one of the things that Axel's got one of his awesome videos of on his YouTube channel. So yeah, give that a go.
Nice. I've just typed that in my spelling and it's come up with Bud Pig Cup, which is an international underwater
I'll try again.
tournament.
Kristiansund Cup. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
There you go. Interested.
And
Nice.
On the other thing that happened this week is I did a breathing course, which is probably the second one I've done. Like a breath hold course, I think, actually, rather than a breathing course. Doing like a little loop of breath holds with Lean by the Sea on Instagram. Awesome course, really, really cool.
Nice.
And gives you some really good exercises to get into. She's also got loads of kind of courses around the world that she's running, possibly one in the Maldives in June, July. I think she's running ones out in Bali as well at the moment. So
Nice.
Amazing.
hoping one day to get up there and go for a tropical dive.
Well, just in case we didn't mention it through natural conversation, Sam is still underwater spearfishing. No, what's his website? Rich?
Underwater foraging.
That's it. Underwaterforaging.co.uk.
You just got BSA on the brain, man.
Oh, honestly, there's too much going on with the BSA at the moment. But yeah, Sam over at Underwater Foraging. He's the guy if you need gear. Get in touch. Just in case Rich didn't mention it throughout the podcast is all.
And if you use Hangout 5, you get 5% off.
No merch is there.
Our merch, I'm wearing the new top and it should be released next week. I know I said last week, but next week. But yeah, it looks pretty cool. Good quality. Really
It
nice.
looks great. Really cool. I'm looking forward to having my cap as well.
Yeah,
Nice.
you got a beanie on the way and I've got a cap as well. So yeah, they look sick.
Sweet.
Nice one, lads.
Been a pleasure as always.
Cheers,
Catch you
guys.
later.
Bye.
Wanna hear you go.